All right. I had a post I wanted to make, but as usual, it would be really long, and so I just don't feel like doing that straight up. So I'm gonna do it YouTube stylies. So here it is. Yeah, the thing about Rick Barnes as a coach is that he is a very, very good regular season basketball coach, but he's a subpar postseason coach. And that's a very tricky situation to be in. There is no other sport in the entire world that is similar to college basketball where you have like a 30 game regular season, but then the NCAA tournament, this 6 round, 64 team or 68 team now tournament format. There's just no other sport that decides their champion like that, and so winning the NCAA tournament is arguably the most difficult sporting achievement in all of world sports. First off, but the other thing about that is at the end of the day, fair or not, head coaches are going to get judged on tournament performance. You know, that's what people are going to remember is the tournament more than anything. And so being a guy like Coach Barnes, who's really like the quintessential example of this, being a guy, you know, he's going to retire top 20 all time and wins, maybe top 15. This is a guy who rolls out of bed and wins 20 games. You know what I mean? This is a guy who wins 20, 25 games on a at least semi-regular basis. But then, as we all know, he basically never overperforms in the postseason, and he's more likely to underperform uh, than anything, you know. And not by the huge margins that people make it out to be. You know, he's always underperforming in like understandable ways. It's just the volume. It's just that it's so consistent. If he had a few cases where he'd overperformed, you'd be able to look the other way on it. It's just, you know, like the Loyola loss, you know, on paper it looks bad, but that's a Final Four team. Things like that, you know. Anyway, here's the other thing about Coach Barnes and about being such a great regular season coach who's then subpar in the postseason, and that's both conference tournament as well as NCAA tournament. The catch 22 about that is that let's look at this year's team. They lost 3 guys to the NBA draft from last year. Yves Pons was a huge player for the Vols. And if Keon Johnson had returned, he'd be their best player, their number one guy, I mean, all American caliber player. They lost a bunch of players from last year. You look at the Tennessee team, you look at what they did last year, you look at their personnel this year, and coming into the season, you're knowing that they're going to be relying on freshman guards, multiple freshman guards. You've got Kennedy Chandler and Zakai Ziegler out here playing. Ziegler is my favorite player in college basketball who's not a Longhorn. I love Zakai Ziegler. And Kennedy Chandler on his day shows you exactly why he's an NBA prospect and probably a one and done. In my opinion, Kennedy Chandler would be served better by returning for one more year and being the leader and the go-to guy of a potential Final Four team. I think that would be better for his growth as a player and as a man than being some guy, you know, on the Sioux Falls G League team or whatever. You know what I mean? That's my opinion. Anyway, I digress. Here's my point. Nobody was looking at this Tennessee roster this year, heading into the year, and going, oh, this is a 2 seed. This is a 3 seed. This is a Sweet 16 Elite 8 team. No, nobody was talking about that. And yet you look at it, and right now Tennessee is a 3 seed. They have 2 games they should win to end the regular season. And depending on what they do in the conference tournament, they could go as high as a 2 seed. So they're going to be a 2 or 3 seed, most likely a 3 seed, or if they really fuck up down the stretch, it's not inconceivable they could be a 4. Anyway, here's my point. They're most likely going to be a 3, potentially a 2. Well, nobody was saying that about them before the season. Nobody was saying that halfway through the season. And in fact, we got word from our resident Knoxville guy. I was finna say our resident Knoxville resident. And I realized it right as it was happening, and I just butchered the entire thing. Allow myself to introduce myself. Anyway, our man on the ground in Knoxville told us it was 5 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago. Rick Barnes is persona non grata in Knoxville. He's got a few people supporting him, but most are pissed and are over him and are ready to move on. Point being, even 5 or 6 weeks ago, absolutely nobody was looking at Tennessee and going, that's a 3 seed, potentially a 2 seed. Well, what does a 3 seed or a 2 seed mean? Well, it means you should go to the Sweet 16 is what it means, right? That's what everyone has tacitly agreed to. And if you're a 2 seed, it means you should go to the Elite 8. Okay? And so this is a unique problem for Rick Barnes because so few coaches in history are as uniquely great in the regular season yet underperforming in the postseason. My opinion, obviously, is that it's a real shame that that's the way it is because it's going to hinder his legacy. Here's going to be a guy who, in terms of like time and days and games played and weeks and months spent as a coach competing, here's going to be a guy who kicked ass 85-90% of the time, but who's going to be remembered for that 10-15%, those postseason games, those conference tourney games, and those NCAA tourney games where he just, to this point, never outperformed his seed to any real remarkable degree, and obviously only the one Final Four and no titles. And so, in summation, my main takeaway is just, don't be, one of the people who just parrot everything. Give the man some credit for being an absolutely great, a definitively great regular season college basketball coach. A guy who regularly overperforms with the talent on his roster, overperforms his preseason expectations. I mean, 25 plus years going. He's been doing that, period. I mean, and truly, very, very, very few coaches, if any, take players ranked outside the top 100, ranked outside the top 200, ranked outside the top 250, players who nobody wants. I don't think there's another coach in college basketball who, as often as Rick Barnes, compiles full-ass rosters full of those guys and then 1 or 2 4-stars, and wins 22, 23 games and gets a 4 seed or something. You know what I mean? Great regular season coach, subpar tournament coach. And so again, when you find yourself exceeding expectations, what happens is a month ago, people were unhappy with Barnes and said, well, he shouldn't be our coach. Now he's going to find himself in a situation where he's a 3 seed. And, if they lose in the round of 32, it doesn't matter how good the other team plays or how screwed they got on the seeding, or how good the other team was. Even if they lose in the Sweet 16 as a 3 seed, whatever happens. And again, this is a Tennessee team that they're actually playing their best ball as of late. But look, it's all about their guards. It's about Santi Vescovi and Ziegler and Chandler and Josiah Jordan James. And those guys have all been playing their best ball as of late, pretty much. For the majority of the season, for a lot of last year, the guys that were at Tennessee, up and down, inconsistent, here one game, gone the next. If their guards show up to play, their defense is so elite and so good, they will go to the Sweet 16. I feel very confident in saying that. Their ceiling should be the Elite Eight at this point, which again, going into the season, is outstanding. So just keep that in mind. Just keep in mind how well Coach Rick Barnes has done for 3 decades as a regular season coach. You know, the tournament, if you make it to the championship game, it's 6 games. And your regular season is 30 plus games, you know. And for 3 decades now, he's been a guy who really kicks ass, well above average during those 30 to 35 game regular seasons, but then certainly below average in those tournaments. And you know what? There's people like that. There are kids who make great grades and kick ass in every class and they don't do well on tests. It is what it is. But I would implore more people to appreciate the regular season work he's done. Zakai Ziegler has been every bit as important as Kennedy Chandler. Chandler was the big 5-star. Ziegler was, you know, the add-on, the afterthought, okay? Barnes has been doing this since Providence, since Clemson, since Texas. Royale Ivy, I don't even need to just Isaiah Taylor, Freddie Williams. You can go way back. This guy knows how to identify guards with passion and fire and talent and just tough-minded players who he's going to get the best out of for a 30-game season. And it is impressive to know how to win during the regular season, even if it's disappointing to have the tournament record that he has. So that's pretty much everything I had to say on that. That is, in my opinion, the book on Rick Barnes and his legacy and where he stands as a college coach. And I will really be rooting for him to go as far as possible in the tournament every year that he coaches. And I hope that the guard play of late, and by the way, since I can't remember the name of the kid who went down, Olivier something. Ever since he went down, I'm adding on. I'm going long again. It's loquacious. It's verbose. It's long-winded. It's Durka. It's B-Ross. It's me. It's my essence. It's my mania. Just roll with it, okay? Ever since Olivier went down, Barnes has such a track record of doing this. It's reminded me of TJ's freshman year. And I will leave you with this. TJ Ford's freshman year, our best player was Chris Owens, great-grandson or the grandson of Jesse Owens. Chris Owens, unbelievable athlete. TJ throws Chris Owens an alley-oop, and Owens lands wrong and tears his ACL. And we lose our best player. So James Thomas now gets thrown into a much bigger role. And James Thomas, straight out of Schenectady, one of New York's finest, one of the toughest guys to ever play for Rick Barnes. He stepped up to the challenge. He was a player who liked to be coached hard. He was a player who was ready to step up when it was his time. James Thomas steps in, fills in brilliantly. Texas goes to the Sweet 16 where we lose by 1, on a last-second shot. TJ almost sent us to the Elite Eight. That was that Luke Rittenhauer, Luke Jackson team. That was a very good Oregon team. Anyway, Chris Owens' injury paved the way for James Thomas to get his first really serious run. And then Thomas was an integral part of the Final Four team the next year. Thomas, one of the baddest dudes to ever play in the post at Texas. And it was amazing how, when called upon, he was able to step up like that, and it produced future results as well. That's what I've seen this year since their guy Olivier has gone down. They've brought in the giant Serbian guy more. Victor Bailey has been playing really well. He's not exactly a post, but he's an athlete, and he gets rebounds and stuff. And anyway, that's Rick Barnes. It's no excuses. We lost 3 guys to the draft. We're losing guys to injury. This and that, but it's next man up, and it's exceeding expectations in the regular season. And I just hope for his sake and his legacy's sake that one of these years he's able to cut down the nets again, get to the Final Four, get to the title game, and even win one. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this team can accomplish, and I'm hoping he stays at Tennessee for another 5, 10 years, because I think if he does, I at some point the dice have to fall his way, right? I don't know. That's what I believe. So anyway, that's my take on Barnes as a coach, and I think he'll be in the Hall of Fame one day, and he's really underappreciated, and I just would like to see that change.